Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest Matt Haig, and he's here today to share with us his new book, Notes on a Nervous Planet. Now, Matt is the author of the international best-selling memoir, Reasons to Stay Alive and Notes on a Nervous Planet, along with 6 other novels, including How to Stop Time and several award-winning children's books. Matt's books have been translated in over 25 languages, and he won the TV Book Club Book of the Series Award. So let's welcome to the show, Matt Haig.
Nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
What an honor it is to have you here. And my goodness, Notes on a Nervous Planet. I mean, that's quite a book. I mean, I have to ask you, what inspired you to write this?
I think my own mental health and my own experience of the modern world, really. And I was starting to realize, I've been writing about my mental health for a little while, and I was starting to realize how much of modern life affects it and how we don't really talk about that. You know, our lives have fundamentally changed in the last 10 years in terms of how we communicate with each other, how we work, how we fall in love. Pretty much every aspect of human life has changed to some degree in the last 10 years because of technology. And it's also impacting on our mental health. And I wanted to just explore that and ask questions about that and understand myself a bit better, first and foremost.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, I look back, 20 years ago and how different things were. People were a little bit more connected. There were more conversations kind of happening.
Yeah.
And today everything's defined by emojis and likes, and it can get a little disheartening.
Yeah. I think we're losing a sense of the real. I mean, even in terms of, certainly like young people who are now getting more body dysmorphia and more worried about their looks because of, for instance, filters which change the way they look, where they make their eyes bigger or their skin smoother or their bodies a different shape. And they almost want to become something that is not quite human. It's slightly enhanced by technology. And then they're feeling a little bit disappointed with their normal human face and bodies, which is perfectly beautiful and wonderful, but because we're projected this technological ideal, we're almost disappointed with our natural human nature.
I mean, we get so bombarded with that, and I agree with you 100%. I mean, you look at these things, and again, you talk about how to make the eyes bigger and the skin more perfect, and perfect weight,
yeah.
And there's lots of things you can do, and no one can attain that level, nor should we want to.
Nor should we want to. But there was a case recently, I don't know if it was in the US or the UK, but there was a case of a woman who went to a plastic surgeon to ask for her eyes to be made bigger, and they said, that is an operation that just doesn't exist. It's physically impossible to make a human being's eyes bigger. And they asked her why she wanted to do that, and she showed a photo of herself, with a Snapchat filter, and she said, I just want to look like I did in that filter, and to go to that extent of, surgery just to look literally not like a human being, because our eyes have evolved to be the perfect size that they are, but, now we want to become like Bambi or something with these gigantic eyes, which I find quite strange. And it's not just, this pressure obviously has for a long time been felt largely by women, but increasingly men. Men are sort of getting more and more, especially Instagram, getting more and more worried about what they look like or how much their body looks like a gym-built body. There are even apps, to improve your six-pack and various other things. And I just wonder where all this is heading, and that was my sort of starting point, really, for this book.
Well, I'm glad that you're bringing this up, because things only change when they come to the light. Discussion happens about it so that people can say, you know what, this might not be something I really want to buy into or believe.
No, absolutely. And I don't want, I definitely didn't set out to write a depressing book, even though I'm someone who's had depression and anxiety, and I was definitely referring to those things in there. I think really, we've got an opportunity now to actually celebrate, our natural selves as human beings, and to sort of explore, for all this technological progress that's happened in the last few years, human beings essentially, we have been like we are in terms of, science and biology for at least 10,000 years. There's been the tiniest, slightest evolutionary change in that amount of time. And so, I feel like a lot of the solutions are to actually understand that we are natural creatures who need the right amount of sleep, who aren't made to process infinite amounts of troubling information continually on rolling news and all of that. And I read recently, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he was an evolutionary psychologist, and he said that human beings evolved to meaningfully only know about 150 people in their lifetime. And if you go back 1,000 years or so, and you see the records of sort of early English villages and early European villages, they all roughly rounded out at about 150, which was the sort of natural size of a community where you could just about know everyone in that community to some degree. And of course now you can encounter 150 new people on your Instagram feed before you even got out of bed. You could scroll through and see 150 new faces. So I think that's one part of it. We're kind of overloaded, whether it's the news cycle or whatever it is. We feel a little bit swamped and a little bit paralyzed by it. So often the solution is taking things away, editing things out, not having your phone by the bed, or switching off the news when it gets too much. Or, often the solution isn't adding something else. It's often editing something or taking it out.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, and you mentioned in your book how, not having the phone right by your bed was kind of a difficult thing. And I think a lot of people kind of find that to be true, but in the same breath, it's like, our sleep patterns get interrupted and we keep getting bombarded with information that we probably don't need.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a natural human instinct to want to sort of keep up with the news because, originally our sort of cave people ancestors, they needed to know where the danger was and how safe it would be, and if there was a bear or a wolf near their hut or cave or dwelling place. But now, of course, there's danger everywhere, and we can see it. We can see it 8,000 miles away from where we live. We can see stuff. And obviously, sometimes there are things we can do, We can vote a certain way, or we can try and improve something locally. But a lot of the information we're getting isn't stuff that we're actually acting on, and it's just stuff that worries us and frustrates us without actually requiring us to do anything. So we're just sort of sitting there passively getting worried. And, obviously anxiety exists for a reason, but when we used to have anxiety, it was because there was a danger and we had to either sort of run away from it or fight it and deal with it. But now we have this continual stream of anxiety coming in, which we're not doing anything with, and that's the dangerous thing. Because if you're faced with the bear and you run away from the bear, the anxiety goes away. Whereas if you're faced with whatever you're seeing on CNN or whatever it is, or on Twitter, and it's this continual barrage of negativity and worry and all of this stuff, we have nothing to do with it. It has nowhere to go, so it sort of stays in us and builds up, and it sort of slowly drives us mad. So I feel like we need to be a bit more mindful of that and a little bit more aware and sort of look after ourselves a little bit better.
After you disconnected from mobile devices and news and what have you, how did you initially feel?
Well, I find it quite hard. I get panicky if I'm in a place without Wi-Fi. And there's a lot of places in the countryside in England where you'll go and you've got no connection. And but initially you feel stressed out. If I go on holiday somewhere where there's not good internet connection or something, I'll have about 2 days of freaking out. And then after that, I'll suddenly start to feel more relaxed and I'll get used to it. And it was very, very hard for me when I banned my phone from my bedroom. So I'd have it downstairs. So if it was an emergency phone call in the night, I would have heard it. But otherwise, I wasn't going to hear every sort of notification or text alert. So I'd charge my phone in the kitchen. So then at least I would have to get out of bed in the morning, go downstairs, have some breakfast before I'm actually checking the phone. Because my worst thing wasn't being on it on a night. It would be waking up too early, like 5 in the morning, and being half asleep, and then just checking it to see who's got back or anything. And then 1 minute would become 20 minutes, and before you know it, that's it, and you've only had 5 hours sleep and you're feeling a bit tired all day. And so that's been a real improvement, just that tiny thing. I still spend too much time on my phone, like most people, but just having that sort of sacred space of the bedroom and not actually having it right next to me as I sleep has been definitely one little thing that I'm proud of, which sounds quite ridiculous, but there you go.
Hey, I applaud you because, I'm starting to do it myself since reading your book, and it's a little bit of a struggle, I'm so
no, it really is. It feels a part of us. It feels like you're taking your sort of right hand away or something. It's like, oh my goodness. And we're conditioned to be like that now. And it's so strange because it really is quite recent history when we weren't like that. I can remember when people started to send SMS and text messages to each other, how strange that felt. So I thought, oh, but this might be short-lived, and people will go. And then, of course, they're doing that all the time, all day long. Many people now have relationships with people which, way over half of that relationship is conducted online or via SMS or WhatsApp or whatever it is. And that is a massive difference. And what I find strange is not just the technological progress, but the fact that no one, or not many people, are really sort of taking a time out and thinking, what's this doing to us? There may be good aspects of this, but shouldn't we just sort of stand back and look at it a little bit psychologically or as a health issue? And I think one of the reasons we're not doing that, to be honest, is the fact that we're still, although we're talking a lot about mental health, I don't think we're quite at the place we need to be with mental health. Mental health is still seen as a very different thing to physical health. There's still a lot of stigma and confusion around mental health. So if we're talking about things affecting our mental health, we do not take that as seriously as if it was affecting our physical health. If some new fast food came out and it was discovered that it was massively affecting people's physical health and it was ruining their lives and this and that, we would be on it, in a heartbeat. But when it's mental health, it's a little bit more complicated, and people are a little bit more wary about talking about it as a health issue.
Well, I think that these type of discussions help people to understand it a little bit more, to be more open about it, for there to be more discussion about it. So it's not this, thing. I think it's actually the perfect age. We're in this perfect time in human history where, the discussion of mental health is really kind of on the forefront.
Absolutely. And that is definitely the first step. We are definitely at a point now. When I was younger, when I was 24 years old, I had a full-blown nervous breakdown. I had no idea what was happening to me. And it was for no apparent reason. I just had this sort of built-up stress and depression, and then I just hit a brick wall. And it was a proper breakdown, and I was a mess of depression and anxiety and panic disorder for about 3 years, and then on and off since then. And I'm in a much better place now, and weirdly, I don't regret any of it because I've actually known more happiness because of that experience, and I changed who I was because of that experience. But at that time, the thing that made it hard, extra hard, and harder for me to get out of was the fact that I didn't really have examples of other people going through what I was going through. So yes, I knew the words depression and anxiety, but I didn't have any first-hand examples of other people doing that. So the only examples I had were the sort of tragic, famous figures, whether it was Kurt Cobain or Sylvia Plath or Hemingway or whoever it was, who ended their own lives, and it was just a sort of fatal curse. That's what I thought depression was. And obviously that is not most people's experiences of depression, but even 20 years ago, we weren't talking about it out in the open, and that has massively changed. And actually, that is the one good thing, well, not the only good thing, but one very clear good thing in terms of mental health and social media, because what the internet has done is it has given us all a voice and given us all a public voice. And so there are a lot more people able to come out of the closet, as it were, and talk about their own experiences in a relatively safe way, and sometimes even in an anonymous way. And I think that, that does help ease the loneliness of the experience of mental illness. But at the same time, we've still got a long way to go. Often when a famous person talks about their mental health experience, the way it's presented is almost as a confession. I notice the word admit. So a certain celebrity will admit that they wanted to take their own life, or admit, and we don't use that sort of language with physical health. So I think there's still a little way to go, and obviously we all get it wrong from time to time, and we're all learning and trying to help each other. But yes, it's definitely heading in the right direction in terms of stigma.
Well, it's interesting because you touched on this one part where we talk about panic, and it seems that there's an increase of people experiencing panic attacks now. And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, actually, across the board with anxiety disorders, like there's mixed evidence on depression, and the suicide figures, depending which country you look, they're either up or down. But in terms of panic disorders and in terms of anxiety, there's no doubt that in general they are rising, and rising in particular with younger people. Now, some people would say, because we're having the conversation, because we're talking about it more, doctors are more likely to diagnose it, people are more likely to go to their doctors, people are being more open about it. And that may be part of the picture. But the interesting thing is that actually, when you break down the figures, the areas which are rising faster are still those with a lot of stigma attached to them, things like self-harm, things like eating disorders, various other things. So there's obviously something else going on. And I think, particularly when you look at younger people, millennials and younger than millennials, you are looking at a range of pressures that they're facing that they didn't used to have. So, sometimes unfairly they're called and referred to as the snowflake generation and being sensitive about things. But I think what that ignores is, well, human beings haven't changed. So there's no DNA which makes someone more sensitive. What has changed is the way we live, and the way we live in terms of experiencing everything. So, it's that constant barrage of stimulation and sensation to get our attention. And there's a big overlap between attention deficit and anxiety. It literally affects the same part of the brain, the frontal lobe, the thing which is meant to be our sort of inner therapist, the front part of our brain, which is meant to calm us down and calm the amygdala, which monitors our fear, inside our brain. And that is actually, there's evidence to show that actually changes the more stimulated it is. So, any of our entertainment media or any of our news media has changed a lot in a generation. You look at the news and it has about 5 different faces on the news and loads of stimulating things happening, and that's mirroring what we're seeing on the internet and popular advertising, and cities are getting ever busier, lives are getting ever busier. We feel like we have no time. We feel more guilty if we're not working. Advertising is getting more sophisticated at making us feel incomplete if we don't look a certain way or we don't own a certain thing. And so all of this is sort of preying on our psychology in in a way that it wasn't doing before. You know, we're at this stage now where, you know, people worry if they've got the right body to go to the beach. People worry, you know, about aging and the appearance of aging more than ever, because there's a $24 billion industry that makes money from anti-aging products. And so whatever it is, all our natural anxieties, natural fears about growing old, about dangers in the outside world, they've been exaggerated and blown up to such an extent that it's very hard to sort of stay sane and calm. And being calm is almost like a revolutionary act when everything is coming at us and wanting us to be a little bit worried, so then we can get the solution to that worry. But I feel like, as with all kinds of mental health recovery, being aware of it is part of the solution. So it might sound negative sort of pointing out all this stuff, but actually that awareness of how we're feeling and how that relates to the outside world is quite therapeutic, because the thing that was really made me suicidal when I was younger was the idea that there was nothing I could do, that it was totally unrelated to the outside world, and it was just about me. It was a flaw in me and my personality, and that there was no getting over it. And to realize that actually, yes, some of it might be stuff that I can't help, but there's also other stuff that I can help. And there are things I can do, things I can eat, things I can drink, things I can, you know, things I can interact with, you know, extra hours of sleep that I can get, different ways of living and different ways of communicating that can actually make me feel better. And just knowing that in itself offered me a kind of freedom and a little bit of hope as well that I would be able to recover from this thing.
Well, and kind of on that note, if you could tell your younger self something, what would that be?
Well, if I could tell my 24-year-old self or 25-year-old self when I was in the midst of it, and literally, you know, with mental illness, it's 24/7, you know, that's the thing that people don't understand. There's no off switch. If you have a bad back, there might be a position you can get into that eases it a little bit, but when you're in the absolute midst of serious depression, it feels like there's no position, there's no, you know, because it's your mind, it's everything, you know, but it's very hard to get into that state. I think the thing I would tell myself is, well, when I was suicidal, I would say you have to stay alive for other people, but those other people aren't necessarily the people you love and the people you've got in your life at that moment. The other people can be you. The other you are not going to stay that same 24-year-old version of yourself. There are going to be other people that you become throughout your life, and it will surprise you who you'll be and how far you'll make it. And actually, it's a massive cliche and it's very corny, but it's the oldest cliche in the world, that time heals. And I think with depression, it's true, because the one thing bigger than depression is time. And so many of the things that my mind was telling me at a young age turned out not to be true. And the way I could find that out was by holding on, by staying alive. You know, so I was convinced I'd be dead at the age of 25. I wasn't. And then, you know, I'm now 43 years old. I was convinced every relationship I'd have would end up in disaster. Not true. I married my girlfriend and this happened. Obviously bad things have happened in my life, but there's the normal range of bad things. It's not the sort of range that depression gives you, where it gives you the most pessimistic outlook possible. And so actually, in a very strange way, my experience of depression made me optimistic. It made me hopeful about the future, because actually it turned out that the pessimistic voice was the one that was lying to me.
Yeah, it's really interesting when we look at how we feel in a state of depression. You know, at least, you know, from what I understand it, a lot of times it could be a misperception about what's going on around us, and you know, having that ray of hope can be such a big thing.
Totally. Yeah, just having hope, because it's so hard sometimes for hope to exist in a mind with depression. But I think we can give each other hope. I think that's one great thing about sharing stories as well. It can actually, mental illness for most people is something that they live with and manage and recover from. And even when they don't recover from, they manage it to an extent where they can have joy in their life, they can have meaningful relationships in their life. And, there is a lot of reasons to be optimistic. And education is the key. I knew nothing when I was really ill, and I know a lot more now, having researched books about it and stuff. But there's still a long way to go for all of us. And I think the more we learn from each other and our own sort of subjective experiences, the more we can help each other.
And that's really kind of what it's all about. I think your book, Notes on a Nervous Planet, really provide a lot of, hope and insight and just getting the discussion started in regards to how people are feeling, because it's such a big thing right now. And I really applaud you because this book is such a great help.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think so. I think it's, especially, a lot of us, and especially men traditionally, have found it quite hard sometimes to just talk about their emotional life. And it's not necessarily if you're ill, just talking about emotions in general can be a hard thing to do. And I feel like it becomes less hard the more you talk about it. I think one of my favorite thing to happen with this book and another book I wrote called Reasons to Stay Alive, which did well in my country, and a lot of people read it, was I'd have people come up to me at events and they'd say, because of you talking about it, I then talked to my wife about it or my husband about it, and then I went to the doctor and spoke to them about it, and I like the contagious effect. And you don't need to write a book to do this. You can write a blog. You can tell a neighbor. Talking to a doctor, whatever it is, that talk itself is a healing force. And I think one of the reasons why therapy is right up there with prescription drugs in terms of effectiveness of treatment is because it's literally it's that process of externalizing something that is very internal. It's like taking out a kidney stone. It's like taking out something which you think is almost so powerful it's beyond words. But when you put it into words, it's a way of sharing it. It's a way of feeling like I can manage this. I can understand it. I can see it because I've written it down or I've spoken about it and I've put it into words. I've put it into language. And that itself, we should not underestimate that power, which is why it's important as well that we occasionally challenge people who are quite stigmatizing about mental health or, talk about it in terms of weakness or, there's something wrong with them. Or even, quite well-meaning people, sometimes if they are arguing with someone on the other side of a political spectrum or something, will throw, insults relating to mental illness, or they'll be the amateur psychologist diagnosing things. And that doesn't just insult the person they're trying to insult. It insults everyone with that condition. So I think we can all be a bit more mindful and careful when we're doing that and throwing out
you're
terms
and inspiration. My goodness,
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, it's okay. Well, that was a nice interruption. It was a good one. I'm interrupting you now. So.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. Oh, my goodness. I mean, you can interrupt me all day long. Your book, Notes on a Nervous Planet, is such a great read. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
Well, I've just been talking a lot about social media and spending too much time on it. But yeah, I'm right there. I'm on Twitter, Matt Haig 1. My surname's weird. Most people don't think it's spelled the way it's spelled. It's H-A-I-G. Often people add an extra H or put a U in there. H-A-I-G. And I'm on Instagram, but in a mindful way, hopefully. I'm not first thing in the morning.
We definitely need more inspiring people on social media. And even though we've been talking about staying off social media and how to detach from that and what's really important, Matt, you're one of those people that we need to stay in touch with. So again, if you'd like to connect with Matt, you can do at matthaig.com, and we'll have the link below. Notes on a Nervous Planet is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie bookstores. And if they don't have it on the shelves, ask for them to order it. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.